The Reno Tahoe area surprised the world when Palisades Tahoe was selected as the site of the 1960 Winter Olympics. And as I passed this site several weeks ago, I started thinking, I wonder what's still left at the site from the days of the Olympics, which is 65 years ago from the date of this filming. Well, I found out, and I'll show you a couple of buildings and other reminders on the landscape that harken back to the days when the eyes of the world were right here on this edition of the Reno You Know. Squaw Valley had its name changed several years ago to a more politically correct Olympic Valley, and the resort in Olympic Valley is named Palisades Tahoe today. The small valley between Truckee, California and Lake Tahoe was the site of the 1960 Winter Olympics, and the structure that you see behind me was called the Tower of Nations, and this was actually used at the Olympic venue as a focal point. And many years ago, this was moved to this location at the turnoff from Highway 89 up into Olympic Valley, and you can enjoy seeing it today. And if you look closely in the historic photographs that I'm going to put up later in this video, watch for this. You'll be able to see it in action. The resort itself was the brainchild of a gentleman named Alexander Cushing, who became attracted to the area on a ski vacation to Lake Tahoe. And he partnered up with a fellow named Wayne Polson, who had actually bought up much of the land in Squaw Valley in the 1940s. And together they opened the Squaw Valley Ski Resort in 1949. Did you know that Reno, Nevada once made an effort to host the Winter Olympics? In 1954, I believe, Reno would have made the area around Mount Rose the venue. Alexander Cushing saw the news of this effort and thought that his little resort would be a better option. At the time, the leading contender for the 1960 Games was Innsbruck, Austria. Cushing was determined and got the state of California to back it financially. The United States Olympic Committee approved the bid, which was signed off by Congress and President Eisenhower. Alexander Cushing then traveled to Paris to present the folks making the decision with a scale model of Squaw Valley to demonstrate the viability of the site. This newspaper headline from June of 1955 proclaims that Squaw Valley was the chosen location, beating out the other contenders Innsbruck, Austria, and Saint-Moritz in Switzerland, and Chamonix in France. This was a big surprise to Europe and to the contenders, which pretty much collectively said, "Where? Squaw Valley?" And they further squeaked about the site because they said that the runs wouldn't be up to standards, and the elevation here at more than 6,000 feet might be a problem for some of the athletes. Regardless, plans were set in motion to facilitate the influx of humanity that would arrive in 5 years. What was even more surprising about the selection of Squaw Valley was that in 1955, this resort was small and struggling. At the time of the bid, located here was one chairlift and 2 tow ropes and a 50-room lodge. That's it. That's all that was here. But the smart people putting together this idea of Squaw Valley presented it in a unique angle. What they said was essentially, Squaw Valley is a blank canvas, and it can be customized to the needs of the athletes and the visitors and the press. And they also wanted the venue to be fairly intimate, so all the events were accessible on foot for everybody. The selection of Squaw Valley was also a huge win for Reno, Nevada. Where did most people stay? While there were some options in Lake Tahoe, most folks stayed in Reno. A big problem at the time, though, was that the road leading up to the Olympic site from Reno was still a 2-lane road, and that would have been a nightmare with all of the traffic and winter driving conditions. Highway 40, before it was replaced with Interstate 80, was frequently slow going with no passing lane, so if you got stuck behind a truck or, heaven forbid, there was an accident, forget about it. The state of California had decided that the highway would be ready from the Sacramento Valley all the way up to Truckee, which is adjacent to Squaw Valley. One guy in Reno recognized the problem for the Nevada side and started a movement to get the highway improved to 4 lanes. And that guy was Pappy Smith of Harold's Club in Reno. Almost single-handedly, he used all the influence that he had with politicians, and he funded a large billboard campaign urging the public to contact their congressman and get the old Highway 40 made into 4 lanes.
On the really tremendous accomplishment side, Pappy is responsible for Highway 80 being a freeway between Truckee and Reno. In 1959, they were getting ready for the Olympics at Squaw Valley, and California planned to have 4 lanes only as far as Truckee, as far as the Olympic Games. And it was Pappy who used all the juice he had with all the politicians to get it stretched into Reno. And he did a brilliant job. And it worked.
They fought long and hard, and they put their money right behind where their mouth was. And they're the ones that paid for all of those billboards, the big signs that said, make this safe, make this 4 lanes. And there it was. But it was comical when they finally were able to complete that. The guy that really made it all possible it was kind of overcast, a little rainy, and he's standing way in the back while the politicians are beating their chest about what a great job they did. And we all knew better. The whole area knew who was really behind it and made it possible, and it had nothing to do with the elected officials.
So the organizers had 5 years to put together the infrastructure for this grand event, and several things needed to be constructed, including a large arena and skating ovals, and of course accommodations for these 850 athletes. And it was also decided not to construct a bobsled run. It didn't make financial sense for the small number of countries that would have fielded a team, so there was no bobsled competition here in 1960. The largest facility constructed was Blythe Memorial Arena, which was located right here in what is today an expansive parking lot. It was named after Charles Blythe, who was an investment banker that was the head of the California Olympic Committee. This arena had seating for 8,500 spectators and was the site of the opening and closing ceremonies and important hockey competitions, especially between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. The arena was left open on the south side to showcase a view of the mountains. The Blythe Arena wasn't designed to handle a huge snow load, but it survived for 23 years after the Olympics without a problem. However, under the weight of the huge snows of the winter of 1982-83, it collapsed in March of 1983, and it was then removed permanently. And here's an interesting tidbit you might not have been aware of. Do you know who was hired to coordinate the opening and closing ceremonies here? Walt Disney. Walt Disney was recruited to be the chairman of the pageantry committee, and he reportedly gathered together 5,000 entertainers and 2,000 pigeons to be released. And also in attendance was then Vice President Richard Nixon, who traveled all the way from Washington, D.C. to give a 15-word speech to open the games. He flew into Reno and took a helicopter up here. And this was the first Olympic Games to be broadcast live on national TV. All right, let's do some poking around the valley and we'll find out what is left today from the days of the 1960 Winter Olympics. And I am helped out by an old original map from 1960, the layout of the valley for the games. And I was able to import that into Photoshop and superimpose it over a modern Google Earth image. And the old map is laid out completely accurately to the point that I was able to overlay it over the Google Earth image, and it all lined up perfectly. So we know exactly where things were. All right, our first stop will be to pull into the Olympic Village where all the athletes stayed. And from poking around online, I found that you are supposed to be able to see the original dining hall that all the athletes would gather in and eat in. And of course, it's changed over the years. It's been 65 years, but this is the only original room where you can actually get the feeling of what they felt and what they saw in some of the architecture there. All right, I'm hoping to find that dining room, dining hall, which is one of the only remaining structures that looks kind of like what it looked like back in the day. And I'm not sure exactly which building it's in, so I'm going to go in the Olympic Valley Lodge here and see if I can find it. Oh, well, there it is. That wasn't hard to find. So this was the dining hall for all the athletes here at the Olympic Village where they stayed during their stay here. And I guess you can rent this room out for events and weddings and that kind of thing, but it's still cool to see the room pretty much the way they saw it. This is the exterior of one of the only remaining dorm buildings for the athletes. And of course, it's been brought up to modern aesthetics and tastes. I'm sure that the housing back then was fairly Spartan in nature, but it's been converted into something really modern and a wonderful place to come and stay and just have a vacation or an event. Yeah, this has definitely been re-stuccoed since the days of the Olympics, but the room pattern is all the same. You can see how tightly packed in they were. Hey, how's it going? Spencer?
Yes.
You're the front desk manager here at the
Olympic Village Inn, yeah.
Olympic Village Inn, awesome. And as I understand it, this was the quarters for athletes that stayed here during the Olympics in 1960.
Yeah, these buildings were the dormitories for the 1960 Winter Olympic athletes. It was the only time that all the athletes from all the countries all over the world all stayed in one unified Olympic Village. That has never happened before or since.
Oh my gosh.
Few firsts for that Olympics. It was also the first televised Olympics.
Yeah.
The first electronically timed Olympics for their events. And the first Olympics that had the big grand opening ceremony, which was hosted by Walt Disney at the time, which, of course, you've seen what that ceremony is now turned into decades later.
And this building has been seriously remodeled since that time, is that correct?
Yes, we kind of have the stucco and kind of European chic with the big towers on it that got added in the early 80s when this was changed over into a full-time timeshare resort.
Oh, wow.
But if you want to come over here,
sure.
We've got pictures of what the dormitories used to look like. Our rooms now that you would stay in they have a bedroom and a living room with the bathroom in the middle, and they hold a maximum of 4 people overnight. But actually for the Olympics, it would have been 4 athletes on bunk beds in the bedroom and 4 athletes on bunk beds in what is the living room now. And what is now the bathroom used to be just connecting hallways, and they had communal bathrooms at the end. So,
intimate.
Yeah, here's a picture of what those quarters look like for the athletes. You can see bunk bed here, small little room with the heater in there.
Cool.
And now it's much changed. We have a little
archive. Look at all the pictures.
So here's what the dorms originally looked like. We are standing right now in the gap between these 2 buildings that was added in the 80s, but that's kind of what they looked like back then. And there also used to be 2 more additional buildings that were on the other perimeter of the parking lot.
Okay, wow.
There. So there were 4 of these original athletes. And then the lodge next door that still exists, that's not part of our facilities anymore, but that was the dining quarters for the athletes there and a big meeting space that they had.
Cool.
So.
And the staff has collected these photos over the years, or?
Yeah, some of this was left on site. I think originally from the Olympics. When I was doing some cleaning up a couple years ago, I came across this box of original slides, which I had transferred into these photos that we share with everybody here. These were taken from those original slides.
Nice.
And then, just another cool box of some, we have up on the 3rd floor, I've got some items on display. I actually sent a few of these or purchased some of these original prints that were used to make the photos in the newspapers. You can see they can have the cropping marks on there from where these were put into the newspapers and actually used as the originals.
Nice.
And some of these, such as here's one here I had signed by, actually looked up Carol Heiss, who was the gold medal figure skater and kind of the American hero story from the 1960 Olympics. Found her address. She still lives out in Ohio, and I sent a few of these photos back. She was kind enough to autograph for us there.
How cool is that?
So yeah, she was really the star of the show. She lit the final. I believe she was the athlete that lit the final torch when it was, it kind of came running through, and finally did the final light on the Olympic torch there.
Before Peggy Fleming, maybe some of my viewers remember that name.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was a very popular Olympics. We got some more info here. Here's Stein Eriksen. I think he was the downhill championship. Am I right on that? It is, oh no, Roger Staub, sorry. That's Roger Staub. And then we had, it was Jean-Claude Varnet, who owner of the Varnet sunglass brand. He competed in these Olympics and actually, I believe, took home a gold medal.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, we're trying to preserve that, preserve the history, and we are one of the last Olympic era heritage buildings left in the valley. The only others that I know of are, of course, the Olympic House over in the village, and then the California and Nevada buildings that are like the members' locker rooms and team locker rooms right now. But those buildings are scheduled to, come down with the development of the new village that they're planning on over there. So give it another 10 years, we might be one of the last buildings left standing from that Olympics era there.
Well, glad I'm documenting it now.
Yeah.
Here, I wanted to show you the game of operation. Actually, no, I don't. I wanted to show you these skates here. These were Carol Heiss's skates, and this is at the Olympic Village Inn. It's got her name on there. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. And it also says Squaw Valley on there. That is pretty cool. I spoke to a gentleman at the lodge, and he said, in addition to that dining hall, this green building was also from the days of the Olympics. He's not exactly sure what the use of it is today. Well, the sign says uniform department. So that's the uniform department today, but back in the Olympic days, 1960, this had a different use. I'll have to do some more research and find out what that was. Well, I was not anticipating finding this. How cool is this? This is the chapel from the days of the Olympics. And I'll put up a photograph of it sitting all by its lonesome. But it has been here since that time. Today it's kind of surrounded by housing and probably places for skiers and tourists to stay. But if you're familiar with Reno's architecture, this has the same architectural style as a Fleischmann Planetarium, and this is a hyperbolic paraboloid. So it's not open right now, but sure cool to see that this is still here. All right, I'm walking through this parking area, which today is kind of a construction zone, but this was dead center in the middle of the landing area of the ski jump. So those guys and gals doing that would have landed pretty close to right where I'm walking, and the crowds would be off to the sides. There's a ski lift here today. But if you look closely up there, there are foundations and buttresses from the old ski lift, which was disassembled after 1976. Some cement structures up there. Gosh, can I scramble up there? It looks pretty steep. I'm going to go up and take a look. Well, I got to the base and it looks uncomfortably steep. Well, that is probably why they decided to put a ski jump here. But you can see the concrete foundations up there. And it might be kind of cool one day to take that ski lift, because it looks like those cables just go right by those foundations up there. So maybe one day. Man, is this steep. I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but I'm getting up there and you can see a line of boards that go up along here. That could very well be part of the old ski jump. All right, I made it up. I didn't think I would. Sometimes I was on all fours, but it is really cool to get up here to this concrete foundation of the 1960 Winter Olympics ski jump. And you can tell it is by that swoosh on the top. That sure looks like a jump to me. And there's a little door back there that must have been used for something like emergency rescue crews back in the day. I'm not exactly sure. But let's take a peek. Right next to the ski jump structure is a lot of what looks like erosion control. This metal wiring grate and the 2x4s and such. So it looks like they really had to prep the site. All right, this is the top of the ski jump. Most of it is pretty overgrown by, I think, manzanita. So most of the top is covered except for the edge up here. So if you were a ski jumper, this would have been your view. That takes some guts. And down there you can see the building that's still here today from 1960. And that grand landing area was just right where that dirt pile is. Well, coming up here, I went on top of this and I thought it might be a drainage ditch, but actually this is a pass-through that goes all the way under the ski jump. Do I go through? With my luck, there will be bats. We're going. If there were, I'd be able to see them on top. But let's see where this leads. It's pretty cool to think, the contenders probably passed through here on their way up the hill. There's more of that metal erosion control. And wow, okay, I'm gonna go down this little pathway here. There is what we just visited. Yeah, and here's kind of a secondary support structure. All right, that was cool to see. And now I'm going to put this camera in my pocket and slowly make my way down this hill safely. So I will see you at the bottom. Dear viewers, if you're enjoying this content, please, I encourage you to click the subscribe button. Helping to grow this channel simply means better content for you down the road. Thank you. Thank goodness I came here on a Monday after the July 4th weekend, so it's kind of quiet around here, which is great. This building in front of me is the Olympic House, and this was one of the original structures as well. I confirmed that with one of the workers here. So again, it might have been changed over time. I don't know exactly how, but this structure was here. There's a giant wheel behind the Olympic House, which was here during the Olympics. The Olympic House was, not necessarily the wheel, but maybe it was. Let's see, this says top bull wheel of the Squaw Creek lift, 1949 to 1978. In its time, the Squaw Peak lift was the largest double chairlift in North America. It carried skiers and summertime visitors to the top of the mountain before being replaced by the Super Squaw triple chair in 1978. The top bull wheel, manufactured by Heron Engineering of Denver, Colorado, is made of cast steel and weighs 10,000 pounds. It had to be transported in 2 separate pieces and assembled at the summit of Squaw Peak. All right, and here goes today's gondola up to the high camp. I've done this before and time doesn't permit for me to do it again today, but if you ever make it up here, be sure, if you can stomach it, to take the ride all the way up the cable, up to the top there, and there's a little area where you can relax. I don't believe any of the Olympic activities were done up there, but it's still a cool way to spend an afternoon. Here's a nice portrait of Alexander Cushing here at the gondola entry point. And it's going up right now. Here's the machinery sending the gondola up the mountain. Oh, look, it's the tram car bar. Just speaking for myself, the thought of being suspended hundreds of feet in the air and alcohol do not mix. Hey, skier from I don't know how long ago, I found your glove. All right, we've taken a slight detour down to the west side of Lake Tahoe to a little community named Tahoma. And this is about 12 miles south of what was Squaw Valley. And this is where they held the cross-country skiing and the biathlon events. And the organizers wanted to, of course, keep the events intimate in Squaw Valley, but it kind of made sense to put these events off to the side, what with the space required and bullets flying around and such. So there was a little, not an arena or a stadium, but a kind of a staging area called the McKinney Creek Arena, I believe, and we're going to try to find that as well. But behind me, behind this campground at Sugar Point Pike State Park, are several trails that were used in 1960 as the cross-country trails. So let's go see if we can see those. This is one of the cross-country ski trails in the Sugar Pine Point State Park, way back behind the campground. And so, yeah, the trees were cleared out for the events. And today this road has kind of been repurposed into a fire road / hiking biking trail. But it's kind of cool to walk along the area that they skied through. And farther down this trail, it makes a big loop. I don't know if I'm going to have time today, but at the end of the loop, there are supposedly two big wide open areas, and that's where they would have had the biathlon events. And biathlon is a skiing and shooting situation. So this is what the cross-country paths look like today without the snow. All right, I am at the end of Gray Avenue here in the little community of Tahoma, which is on the west side of Lake Tahoe. And I looked at some interpretive maps, and I found that the McKinney Creek Arena, I guess it was an arena, but the staging area, the main event area for cross-country skiing and the biathlon was located at the end of Gray Avenue in a large open area. And the buildings that were there were temporary. They were designed to be temporary, and they were taken down soon after the Olympics. So I seriously doubt that they poured any foundations or anything like that. But we're still going to walk back. I've parked here at the dead end. We're going to walk in and see if there's anything to see. Well, this will be a nice nature walk, if nothing else. I don't see much evidence yet. Well, this is going to look just like a pine forest because that's what it is now. This is the general area, and if trees were taken out in order to construct the buildings and to just make room for the events, the trees certainly could have grown back up in 65 years. So if this isn't the area, it's at least very close. All right, thanks for hanging out with me on this episode. I really enjoyed making it, and I learned some new things as well. And today we're finishing up this episode at the 50/50 Brewing Company here in Truckee. This is one of my favorites. Every time I'm in the Truckee vicinity, I like to stop here, get a fine craft beer, and maybe some eats if that's on the menu. And I thought of something really cool that we could have done on this episode, maybe next time. What if, when I got to the top of that ski jump structure, what if I had brought my drone and I would have flown my drone all the way down to the landing area and giving a ski jumper's view? Oh, that would have been so cool. I didn't think of it till I got down the mountain, so maybe next time. If you haven't liked the video yet, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel if you will, that sure helps us out. and leave a comment, especially if you were at the Olympics. If you were there, I'd love to hear your experiences. That's all I have for you today. I've got several episodes in the works, so keep watching. And as Harold S. Smith Sr. of Harold's Club always said, I'm with you. Cheers.